All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're digging into a pretty explosive claim from our source material, that the biggest story in human history, what the government now calls UAPs, is being actively and deliberately suppressed. And the number one culprit, according to this investigation? The media itself.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. We're going to start with the mystery itself. Then we'll look at who's allegedly involved and why. We'll follow a pretty wild trail of evidence, figure out the real-world cost of all this secrecy, and then finally get to a very controversial call to action that comes out of all this.
Okay, so our investigation really kicks off with a simple observation. But it's an observation that quickly spirals into a really deep and kind of unsettling question.
According to our source, the biggest clue here is the story that isn't being told. I mean, if you have credible military whistleblowers, official documents, and even physical evidence, which the source alleges exists, then the silence from major news outlets isn't just an oversight. It's the mystery we need to solve.
This brings us straight to our prime suspect, if you will, and according to the source, the most important piece of this whole alleged cover-up puzzle is the press itself, the institution we call the Fourth Estate, the one that's supposed to be our watchdog. You know, the whole point of a free press and a democracy is to be that watchdog, right? To hold power accountable. The source's argument is simple. If that institution is compromised, then secrecy on any topic, let alone one this big, can basically go on forever. And this right here is the core accusation from the source material. It's not just that the media is missing the story or getting it wrong. No, the claim is that the corruption of the media is the single most critical factor that allows this secrecy to continue.
So, if the media is compromised, the next logical question has to be, by who? Our investigation now goes a level deeper, looking for what the source describes as an invisible hand pulling the strings on the narrative from behind the curtain.
And we're not just talking about a few biased reporters here. The allegation is about a deep, structural infiltration, one specifically designed to control what you and I see and hear about this subject.
Now, for evidence of this, the source points to this. Just wow. This quote attributed to former CIA Director Bill Colby. He allegedly said in a 1975 executive session that the Central Intelligence Agency owns everyone of any significance in the major media. I mean, that's a stunning admission of media infiltration supposedly coming straight from the horse's mouth.
But the story gets even darker. The source claims that years later, after Colby was retired, he actually agreed to help their disclosure project, but the very week he was supposed to meet with them, he was found dead. His death was ruled a canoeing accident. To back this up further, the source also points to this 1991 CIA public affairs document. It reportedly admits to having relationships with reporters from every major news outlet and even brags about getting them to postpone, change, hold, or scrap stories that the agency didn't like. The argument here is that this isn't just a one-off thing. It's a consistent pattern of alleged media manipulation that goes back decades, as this next slide really lays out. So just look at this timeline. The alleged pattern starts way back in the 50s, with claims of using Disney to create cartoons that would ridicule the subject. Then we jump to the 70s with Colby's testimony that we just talked about. Fast forward to the 90s, with allegations of actively suppressing real footage. And that brings us to today, where the source says the media is carefully curating a specific, fear-based story by banning first-hand witnesses and only platforming certain commentators. And here's a really specific first-hand story from the source that kind of puts a face on this whole thing. They say that on an expedition with the CBS 48 Hours crew, they filmed incredibly clear UAP footage. The reporter there was apparently blown away, calling it case closed, but when the show actually aired, that footage was gone. It had been replaced, and when the source asked for the original tape back, a producer allegedly told them, "We're a multi-billion-dollar company, and you have nothing."
Okay, so you might be thinking, why does all this matter so much? Well, this is where we get to the real price of this secrecy. According to the source, the fallout from this alleged media-driven silence is staggering, and it affects every single one of us.
The source claims there's basically a playbook, a 4-part disinformation script that gets repeated over and over by the media. Number 1, the objects are a threat. 2, we don't know what they are. 3, we don't know how they fly. And 4, we don't have any tech like that ourselves. The core of the source's argument is that all 4 of these points, which we hear all the time, are provably false.
And the consequences of keeping up these alleged lies? Well, they're huge. First, there's the environmental damage. Suppressing advanced energy tech keeps us stuck on fossil fuels. Second, it's a blow to democracy. A press that can't cover this story isn't a real check on government. And maybe the most alarming claim of all is that this whole narrative is designed to make the public fear an alien threat, which could be used to set the stage for some kind of manufactured conflict.
So given how serious all of these claims are, our investigation wraps up with the source's proposed solution. And it is a bold, and I'd say unprecedented call to action.
The source isn't just saying this is bad journalism. They're arguing that the alleged collusion between these secret programs and corporate media is actually a criminal conspiracy. So, they're calling for a federal criminal investigation under the RICO Act. And if you don't know, that's the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, the same powerful law is used to prosecute organized crime, like the mafia. The implication is that this cover-up is a criminal enterprise.
And so we're left with this one final, pretty heavy question that goes way beyond UAPs. Based on everything presented in our source material, if the very institution designed to be our watchdog is itself on a leash, who's left to hold power to account? That's definitely something worth thinking about.